Does the prospect of self-driving cars cause concerns in the long term for real estate prices? For example, 1 to 5 years, we'll have level 4, level 5 will become a reality. 10 to 20 years, widely accepted, and owning a car is no longer commonplace. And 15 to 30 years, parking lots and garages are no longer needed for every building. Huge increase in land supply. Excellent question. So, in fact, I had dinner last night with a top developer in San Francisco. We spoke about exactly this. So let's first of all talk about a sneak preview with what's going on in the world. So you can see Uber and Lyft, and we've seen the changes happen to cities. People no longer drive and park in cities. They commute with an Uber because it's cheaper than paying for parking. So we're already seeing a huge amount, at least in San Francisco, I've witnessed over the past 10 years. A lot of parking garages have been demoed and they built office spaces or condos. So that's already happening. So you're on the money there. Second, autonomous vehicles and impact on real estate. Garages already being replaced, as I mentioned, because of Uber and Lyft. This will accelerate. There will be fewer parking garages and the prices will become so expensive because supply and demand. An increase in parking prices will make driving into a city completely prohibitive, and which means more space in cities for living. And that brings me to my next point. And this is this regarding the vehicle impact on cities. Barring any future plagues, which caused a lot of people to leave the city over the last 2 years, now they're coming back. And it's estimated that 65% of people will live in cities by the year 2050. This is just a lot more to do. It's a lot more convenient as long as the city is well organized. Now, my vision, I've been talking about this for a while, is the fact that people will still work in cities but live far away at the weekend. So, for example, there might be an autonomous vehicle that will drive them in from the countryside on a Monday morning very early. They'll be able to lay flat in the car, sleep in it, and work till Thursday, and then jump back in that same vehicle and have them sleep on the way home, and then spend the next 3-4 days at home in the beautiful, lush nature countryside. So the people have the city living pleasure and the rural pleasure too, if that's what they want. Now, the other thing to consider really is the suburbs. This is kind of where it gets interesting. So not only you'll have big changes in the actual cities, but also I believe the suburban impact will be a little bit different. Houses near public transport will be less popular because you'll be able to jump in an automated vehicle to take you to the transportation if you need it. Maybe public transport will also become kind of less attractive as well, especially when you see how some of those public transport things are actually run. They're dirty and unhygienic and delayed, etc. Now, people also will now be able to live further away in far more remote areas. And a lot of trend now moving off the grid. The key is to having things like water. Internet is now possible with Starlink, electricity, solar. So it's now much easier than ever before, as long as you can farm your own food. And hybrid living, i.e. that robo-taxi 200 miles out, Monday to Friday, Monday to Thursday, whatever, extends home range. And the other thing that's kind of cool is I do believe having autonomous vehicles will help elderly people be independent for longer and live alone, which is, I think, a big bonus. They can just call up their car, they can turn their garage into more living space, and families are kind of cohabitating. But Main Street News, I think there are bigger factors at play beyond autonomous vehicles, which will have an impact on real estate. But number one, this is kind of more impactful, and that is demographic changes. Your parents got a mortgage, you got a student loan. So I'm talking about your parent, like if somebody out there is in their 20s, for example. Nearly 40% of millennials between the ages of 25 and 37 have bachelor's degrees. And back in the day, less than a quarter of baby boomers have a bachelor's degree. This means that millennials are proportionately more educated and more in debt, and they don't have assets that create wealth. So that student debt is not a mortgage. And that's how the parents did a lot better. Also, if you look at the amount of wealth by generation, it's only 4.3% for millennials. And that big red chunk, well, that's where all the money's at. But baby boomers and older, that money will be changing hands. And that will have a huge impact on where the market goes, where this money will go, and how millennials invest it. that's going to really tell you exactly what to do. And I do believe millennials will want to travel. They'll want to live in places part-time and move all around, maybe do gigs in different parts of the world and see the world. So that's much more in tune with how I see things going. There's also this other aspect here is the modern family structure. It's also changing very rapidly. I touched on this a couple of weeks ago, and how living arrangements have changed. Living with a spouse has fallen from over 80% to 38%, straight down. Living with parents and other relatives, up from 10% to 30% nearly. And living with an unmarried partner is up to 17%. Living alone has been flat, it's been kind of steady, which is good. And living with roommates is also up slightly. But the question is, I think multi-generational households will be a thing of the future. There'll be more people living together, grandparents, parents, children, could be 4 generations in one house. And I think that will be an interesting one too, especially if you can build a house that has both privacy and common areas for everybody. So I think that'll be more impactful than autonomous vehicles, to be honest. So, but it's very, very important when you are investing in real estate, you got to look 10 years out at least. Will the population grow? Will there be demand? Do you have feeders for your property, et cetera, as we go forward?